Bingo, we're back. And this is not the military in Hawaii. That show can't happen today, but we have a substitute show. We have Maryann Sasaki. She's an attorney, a community-minded attorney, may I say, who cares deeply about the community. And we have me as host.
Great host, best host.
So one of the, we have a lot to talk about. And the title of this show is A Closer Look, a look at the system. Okay, so we want to relate it to, the system in general and what is happening in the system and connecting the dots. Maybe that's a better title, connecting the dots. Anyway, one thing of interest, and it somehow relates to this, Maryann stood in for me, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, or last week it was.
Last week. Okay.
Aging with Grace, and I think it was on Thursday.
Yeah, and you had two elderly women in their, 70s?
Well, you know what, I would hesitate
old,
to call them elderly.
No, it's not a good word
very
anymore.
chic women of a certain age, 75 and 84. I mean, completely chic, trim, involved. One of them is still working. The other one plays tennis every day. They were terrific to have on because, women need models of, how to be, because we can't be like our grandmothers. We're not going to, wear aprons and we'll put our hair in a bun when we're 50 or 55. Yeah. So they were great role models for me.
Yeah, and they're successful in life. And they're successful in the community. They're working, right?
Right.
This is so important. They are what is, holding us back from the brink, I would say, because there's a lot there, the minority, right?
Yes. Yes.
And there's a lot of people who, don't have that kind of activity and, who do not stay up with things at that age. And they're not really sustainable. They're doing the old model.
Yeah, right.
Your guest did the new model.
Right. They're engaged. They're engaged in the community. They're engaged in all kinds of activities. They're friends with a broad spectrum of people. They're not friends with just people their own age. So they're young. To me, they're young. I don't even think of Lynn, who I work with every day, as elderly because she looks terrific. I love her clothes. I love her attitude. And so,
But something happened on that show that it became popular, viral even, and somewhat viral.
Yeah, little virus.
Viral is hard to achieve. We did a program with one of the judges on the Supreme Court of Brazil. He's an environmental guy, and he's organizing environmental conferences. And there is one right now happening in Brazil, in Rio, and there are people down there, and they schmooze. They talk about Hawaii and what's happening in Hawaii, and the response to them. I got this email an hour ago. Is Think Tech. We saw that show.
Oh, that's terrific. That's great.
In Brazil.
#1 in Brazil.
So it's not easy to be, globally viral. We have another one, and this is a couple of years old. The Israelis found gas in the Mediterranean, and they're going to try to, develop that. And I don't know why, but this show got out globally. We have tens of thousands of hits, and they keep happening.
Wow. I
And
hope
they're
that
all over the
happens to
world.
Aging with Grace, because I think that's a very important show. I really do, because it affects so many different people. There's so many different issues that can be examined. So, and I personally like, there's a guy who does a blog called Advanced Style, and he only photographs women of a certain age, and they look wonderful.
They're
and
beautiful.
I'm interested in the
All women are beautiful,
fashion.
actually,
I think so, in the fashion of women, of older than, let's say, 55 or 60.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you hit a pocket there, and obviously you connected. Because people are responding.
because it's
You were on
imminent,
the hit
Jay.
parade.
That's why.
Say?
Because that period is imminent for me, very soon.
Well, you were very simpatico, I'm sure.
I was.
But that's Think Tech. We try to find pockets of information, activity, style, the evolution of our society, really, that people don't know about, and that's what we try to deliver to them.
Social history, social issues, absolutely.
It's also business history, though. I talked to Carol Munley, our VP and Chief Operating Officer, and before the show, and I said, what should we talk about today? We should talk about the evolution of business in Hawaii. Where I have seen business in Hawaii for 50 years, and you've seen it for less. Mm-hmm. And so it'd be an interesting, show or discussion for us to compare notes about how business is different here, and how the practice of law is different here, and how, a walk down Bishop Street is a unique experience compared to really any other place in the world. That's a whole discussion. And query whether it's going in the right place or maybe not the right place. And it touches on what I would like to talk about.
I would just say one thing about the businesses in Hawaii. There's a whole little groundswell for local businesses to getting away from the tourism industry and people having their own artisanal businesses. And I think that's a great, that's a great way to go. I think that Hawaii can offer a lot in terms of those independent-minded artisanal businesses. I'm just saying.
Well, I think yes, but I think Hawaii's sense of business is not really moving much. You have a lot of mom and pop businesses that are closing up because their kids don't want to do that, or because the rent is too high, or in equal measure both. Therefore, the smaller operations, the entrepreneurial, the conventional entrepreneurial activities are really slowing down as far as I can see. The big box stores, the mainland owned,
well,
big capital.
You've seen that evolution.
Come in, it owns everything. I remember when Bishop Street was local, it was local. All these buildings were local. And now all of a sudden, if you look again, you see all the capital is from somewhere else. And that is happening in housing too. And when that happens in housing, you have another kind of issue, and it isn't a good thing.
It's called Kaka'ako, that's the issue. That's the neighborhood where it's happening. They're building these multi-million-dollar high-rises, and with the expectation that they'll be globally inhabited by global citizens, not local citizens. Yeah.
Isn't that nice? I'm sure the guys in the tents down below those buildings will understand and appreciate the globalness.
I've witnessed gentrification 4 times in my life with 4 different neighborhoods, and I know the way Kaka'ako is going to unfold. It'll be unrecognizable in probably 5 years, and the inhabitants will all be upper middle class, probably millennials and post millennials, and they'll be living a sort of urban life. They'll walk downtown and. Yeah, it's a problem with the homeless because you can't stick the homeless on Ever Beach. You can't stick the homeless over there.
And creating 2 societies that way, not healthy.
Right.
It's certainly not healthy in an island state, where we all are together, like it or not.
Right.
So that's an aspect of capital investment and business that is a little disconcerting. And on investment, I'd like to point out a trend that I've noticed. We had a program about this last year. Hawaii is bipolar about foreign investment. It's bipolar. Some foreign investment, Hawaii doesn't like instinctively. The idea of NextEra coming in and putting in $4.3 billion, and it starts out with the cards stacked against it because people don't really trust foreign capital. On the other hand, and this is schizophrenic. On the other hand, sometimes people think, well, it's foreign capital. It's foreign expertise, it's foreign big business, it must be good. They must know more than we know.
Right.
And so, if I'm, say, representing or consulting with somebody who wants to come in here, I would need to tell him that. I would need to explain how easy it is to trip off one side or trip the other. It's such a delicate balance for anybody coming in with capital. You can make it big because you can set it up so everybody loves you as a foreign investor, or you can get thrown out of town because nobody likes you.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great tip to take home. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of companies, sort of get away with that. They go this way when maybe they really should be going that way, and vice versa.
Right.
So, right now, I think Hawaii is not taking advantage of foreign investment possibilities. And
really?
Why? Because we don't manage them, except politically, which isn't really management. We merely make that trip hammer decision on them. And nobody's out there, like DBED should be out there. Nobody's out there saying, welcome. Here's the welcome mat.
Right.
We want to help you buy land. We want to help you get staff. We want to help you get everything you need because we want your business. There was a very short period of time in Linda Lingle's administration where she said, I'm going to call them. I'm going to wait. This is when she ran for office. I'm going to call them. I'm going to wake up early every morning. I'm going to call these mainland companies, tech companies, for example, and I'm going to ask them to come, and I'm going to offer them incentives as far as I can go legally. I'm going to try to get them, I'm going to try to persuade them to come. I'm going to advocate for Hawaii as a better place for them to do business. I don't think that happened once in all that time, but that was the idea. We haven't learned to manage foreign investment. That's the problem.
Right.
And that has affected business, and that is why the mom and pops go out and the big boxes come in, but there's not really a robust development of business except in the case of tourism.
Oh, well, I would say also medical marijuana is going to be a business, big business.
How do you really feel about that?
I'm very in favor of it, but I'm just as a local bit. Just let's talk about it purely without, the drug component. Should it be illegal? Shouldn't be legal? But just purely from a business aspect, it's going to be a very big business here in Hawaii. It will. It'll change the economic landscape.
Yes, that's the one I want to talk to you about. How will it change the economic landscape? How will it change the social landscape?
Well, I think there'll be a lot of medical tourism, so to speak, where people come to Hawaii and they're, well, I'm looking down the road because I'm looking at recreational marijuana, which I feel will shortly follow, and so does Senator Sparrow, shortly follow medical marijuana. So once we have recreational marijuana, we're a spot that has everything a person could possibly want on, when they want to come to Paradise. We're offering this delightful, experience with marijuana. We have these delightful beaches. We have obviously the clubs and restaurants that we're known for, and it's just going to represent a huge influx of money, I think. It's, people want it. They want it.
Who's going to make the money? It isn't going to be me.
No, it's going to be the owners of the recreational marijuana stores, retail stores and producers. But, it is local. I'm just saying.
Is it?
Isn't it?
Isn't it?
Well,
Is it?
Let's hope to keep it that way. It may not be, right? Because as soon as it really becomes profitable, we'll see, investment banks coming and sniffing around, and God knows who else.
I have the title of our show. I had this idea before, but I forgot. It's He Said, She Said.
Oh, that's right. That would be great.
Yeah, we take a break so we can consider that. We'll be right back after this short break. You will see.
Aloha, I'm Kirsten Baumgart-Turner, and I host Sustainable Hawaii at thinktechhawaii.com, which streams live educational and civic engagement on the internet and Oceanic Channel 16. I love doing this show because it's an opportunity to be able to share some of the good news as well as the pressing issues for Hawaii and the world about climate change, climate justice, and sustainability, and the need to start employing and continue to request sustainable policy initiatives and actions on the part of our decision makers here and abroad. So I hope you'll tune in with me every Tuesday from 12 to 1 p.m. as we try and engage you, share a lot of very interesting people's work and perspectives, and perhaps turn you on to taking action for sustainability. Mahalo and aloha.
Bingo, we're back. I told you we'd come back. Call me MacArthur, man. So, Maryann, what about these changes you talked about in marijuana? I mean, how would that work? I mean, I see two scenarios, and we can't be sure which one will prevail. I see a scenario where, yes, people come from far and wide to, this will enhance their enjoyment of the otherwise valuable experience by coming to Hawaii. The other one, I see them abusing it. I see the law and order side, being threatened. I see people, having accidents and doing conduct maybe that they wouldn't do if they did not have marijuana.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see. I certainly don't think marijuana is equal to alcohol with respect to accidents and adversely affecting people's behavior. I think it's much safer, but will it rend the fabric of society? I don't know. Will it? I don't know. Will high school kids be affected? Will unemployed people be affected? Will it cause a certain languor in the population? I don't know. Could be. It could be. Marijuana has been known to do that. So, but on the other hand, if it creates jobs and money, that's helping a lot of people.
Okay, well, it's the question is the balance, right? So, as so many other things, and I'm really interested to see what happens because I'm not sure that the return on capital will be coming here. There'll be jobs. I got to see what happens with that. But if all the capital comes from elsewhere, if all the expertise comes from elsewhere, if the owners and operators come from elsewhere, I'm not sure that it does what we want it to do.
The law requires that 41% of the shareholders or members, if you're in an LLC, be residents of Hawaii. So the laws are trying to ensure that the production and sale of marijuana, medical marijuana, stays local. Will it continue so? I don't know.
Is that legal?
I think so. I don't see why
The
not.
41% thing?
Yeah, why not?
Can states do that? Can states say that you can have a corporation, but the ownership has to be local? And how do you establish local anyway?
Well,
I come in and I open a safe deposit box and apply to vote and whatever, all those touchstones.
They wanted several years' worth of tax returns and other information. You have to also sign an affidavit or a statement that you've been living in Hawaii since X period of time and you're a resident. Yeah, the application was very, very specific about that. They really...
That's very interesting because the same issue came up when I took the bar exam.
Oh, really?
You had to be a resident, take the bar exam. You couldn't be a lawyer without taking the bar exam, and you couldn't take the bar exam without being a resident. And I'll never forget, I had a short story.
Oh, okay.
So the clerk of the state Supreme Court called me up and he said, you filed an application to take the bar exam. The justices are not satisfied on the face of it that you are a resident here, and Jay, you have to be a resident. This a long time ago. And I said, what do you mean? I registered my car here. I have a bank account here. I registered to vote here. A safe deposit box. All those indicia of domicile are. I know I'm a lawyer. I know about this stuff. You can't tell me that. And furthermore, I said to him, I am engaged to marry a local girl.
Well, that's persuasive.
Well, he said, wait a minute. Did you say you were engaged to marry a local girl? This is legal. He says, maybe we can work this out.
Yes.
He says, let me talk to some of the justices, and I'll get right back to you. 5 minutes later, he calls me back. He says, it's okay. You don't have to come. They don't want to examine you or anything. You can take the bar exam.
Well, I'm really not surprised. I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, I'll tell you a little story. My husband went to the museum with my friend, who happened to have been on the show, and she wanted Kama Einarate. She was pretending to be the wife of my husband. And the woman didn't believe her. And she kissed my husband. She said, she said, how can you prove you're his wife? Because she said she didn't have any ID. So she gave my husband a big kiss, but that wasn't persuasive. But so you were lucky to have that you were getting married be persuasive, because my friend wasn't able to persuade the lady at the museum.
So, point only that, residence, domicile, this is a very qualitative kind of thing at the end of the day.
No, it's a very relationship-oriented place, which I really like, actually.
Yeah.
You have to be good at relationships, I guess. You have to like that.
In the real estate practice, we always said real estate is not about land, it's about relationships.
It is.
And then I found that that's so for everything in the world.
Everything in the world. Because, Jerry Clay and I do mediation. We do articles on mediation, and he's an expert mediator. And mediation is the perfect solution for personal relationships because you don't destroy the relationship, you can keep going on. But you know what? Businesses also want to keep going on. Their personal relationships, because ultimately it's just people. People are running these businesses. People have the same emotional baggage or whatever when they're a president of a corporation as when they're an individual. So,
but I think you put your finger on something, and that is this. If I have a local business, local customers, local suppliers, local, at least a certain, critical mass of local involved in my industry, then I'm going to enjoy that
protective sort of
envelope you just described. But in years recent, capital has come from elsewhere, and instead of having an on-the-ground local manager, you have an MBA manager in Los Angeles, and the MBA, maybe 23 years old, just got out of business school, and he's telling all the local people what to do, and in detail. Micromanaging, maybe the word. And so all of a sudden, everything changes. It's not the same. We're all under the control of the capital concentration, which doesn't live here, and doesn't come very often.
I don't know how, you say they're under the control. Just considering some of the local people that I've met, I don't know whether, somebody on the mainland can really gain the kind of control they'd like to have. I mean, they have
Well,
a really good way of resisting. You know, it's a very pleasant way. It's a very, you know, hospitable way. But they definitely,
Right.
you know, are hard. You know, they have their own ways.
Island style,
Yes,
yeah.
island style. That's exactly. I was looking for the term.
Well, that
Exactly
takes
right.
me to what I wanted to discuss as the main issue today, and that is whether the system is working. This is so big, hard to get your hands around it, and we can't really do, you know, honestly, justice to it in 20 minutes. But just to touch on it, okay? Is the system working? Is the way the legislature is working? Does that work? Is the way the executive branch working? Is that work? And I mean federal and state both. You know, we live in a time that's way different than when we went to law school.
Yeah.
When we grew up, where we grew up, in terms of people relating to and appreciating and being involved in the government, it's all different now.
Well, look at the way Supreme Court justices are nominated. All through my childhood, and even right up until I went to law school almost, the president would choose a Supreme Court justice, and the Senate would advise and consent, and it was very rare that they would fight a choice, and they'd work together, and you'd have a Supreme Court justice. Now, the very issue of nominating a Supreme Court justice is a subject of conflict. I mean, it's really broken. The system is really broken. I mean, the Supreme Court's in deadlock now. They keep coming up with these deadlock decisions, you know, so.
That's predictable
Right.
in the circumstances.
Right.
You don't want, if you're on the Supreme Court, you don't want to die. It's really important.
No, yeah, right. Well, I think it's Mr. Scalia, Justice Scalia's death was a shock. I think it was a surprise. Nobody saw that coming, and so the Republicans are scrambling to sort of save the day. But you know, in my opinion, Hillary Clinton's going to win the election, and they're going to have to vote on somebody with, you know, a left-leaning justice. I think. I don't know. We'll see who Hillary Clinton's not so left though. So who knows who she'll nominate?
We'll see what she really
She's
is.
century.
She will see what she really is. You know, as we get closer to the election, you go. You know what they say? You go center.
Right.
As you get closer to the election.
Right.
But then when you get, you know, in office, to what you want.
Well, the second term maybe. The first term, I don't know. You have to worry about the second term,
I
right?
think there would be a second term. I guess so.
But
Having a second term seems de rigueur these days.
Yes. Well, yes.
Federal and state.
You can't ruffle too many feathers, because if you want to be elected again, I guess.
Yeah. I wonder whether Bernie would have lasted 2 terms.
I don't think so.
Age does play into it. You know?
Yeah, but I just don't think. I think he would ruffle too many. I mean, he's not really that concerned with ruffling or not ruffling feathers. I mean, he's from Brooklyn, so you know.
Well, I like that.
I like that too. I'm
Bernie
from
guy.
Brooklyn, so you know.
But I really want the best place. Did you see that movie about Brooklyn?
With the young woman in it?
Yeah,
it was
Irish woman.
terrific, wasn't it?
That was fabulous.
Yeah, we recommend the movie Brooklyn with what's her name? The young actress.
She was very
yeah,
good.
she was very good.
And if you don't know the story of Brooklyn, it's about a young immigrant woman who comes over, and it's an adventure for her in I guess the 20s.
No, 50s. It was the 1950s.
Was it 50s?
Mhm.
Okay. Oh. And it's a revisit, you know, of how life was in Brooklyn in the 50s. And you get to see the streets and the cars and the stores and the people and all the
And the
clothing
little
they wore.
ethnic group. She has an Italian boyfriend. She's Irish. That's a source of a little consternation, a little conflict. Brooklyn was a very local, villagey place, you know.
Yeah.
But now, of course, it's totally
The
different.
Brooklyn Dodgers.
Yes, so people
It
were
was a
still
big deal.
people that are disturbed about the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Yeah.
I have uncles that will still become
Still
apoplectic.
very passionate
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
As against the Yankees.
Yeah.
The New York Yankees would have been what? The other boroughs, not Brooklyn.
No, yeah, that's the New York Yankees are like the Roman Empire, right? They won every World Series. They were an operation.
And Yankee Stadium was in the Bronx.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
On the mainland, but the Brooklyn Dodgers were, you know, like the real little hometown team. The little engine that could. They really, and you know, the members of the Brooklyn Dodgers lived in the community. I understand. At least that's what my father told me.
Yeah.
So people would see them on the off season. They had jobs on the off season. It was right in, you know, tiny little stadium right in the middle
They
of
were
Brooklyn.
part of the community. They were representative of the community.
They were.
And then they decided, and this is instrumental. I mean, this is relevant. This canary in the coal mine about grand changes in the country. They go to Los Angeles.
Well, they wanted the big time, I guess.
Well, the big time.
Martin
where the
O'Malley
money,
was
make
the-
more money,
right,
more
yeah.
salaries, more gate, more money. And you say to yourself, gee, I mean, the people in Brooklyn, I'm sure you remember, were really ticked off about that.
I'm telling you, I
You're
still have
leaving us.
relatives
We
that
gave
are.
we gave you life.
Can't believe it. I mean, they felt betrayed. They felt betrayed. They felt betrayed. And, I think that listen, I was barely alive when they moved, and I somehow have incorporated that and think they shouldn't have moved that for some reason. And that's probably just the exposure to all these people who were disgruntled when they moved. I mean, it was just a total, theme in my childhood.
They were representative of the place. They, the whole thing about the immigrant coming from Ireland and all that. That was the character of Brooklyn. Brooklyn had a lot of character. I mean, it still does in its own way, but it lost the iconic aspect of
Yeah,
the
it's not
Dodgers.
Brooklyn-y anymore. It's
right.
something else. It's a destination. It's a world-known destination for a certain kind of hipness, or
Yeah. Well,
so
parts of it is still
where
very-
my mother lives is still neighborhoody. I have to say,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
largely Italian.
My niece used to live in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, which used to be kind of dumpy. And now it's all up and coming.
Very fancy.
It's the Kaka'ako we should have had.
Yeah, well, that's when I look at Kaka'ako, that's what I see. I see, multi-million-dollar Whole Foods and multi-million-dollar Whole Foods is sort of the kiss of if Whole Foods moves to your neighborhood, you can't afford the rent anymore. You certainly can't afford the rent anymore. That's the arbiter. That's the
Well, this points
harbinger.
out, it's largely about money since the 50s. And it has created disparity. We have huge disparity here, which, I always say, but when I came here, which was 1965, there might have been disparity in land. You either owned it or you didn't. But there wasn't disparity in money or lifestyle. Everybody was like together.
No, my husband says that because he grew up and his father was a professional. He was a lawyer and he was a judge. But they lived a very modest life, compared to a judge would live on the mainland.
Yeah.
It's not,
That was a good thing because everybody was together in that. You didn't show it off.
It was an embarrassment to show it off, actually.
yeah.
It was not civilized.
And now you have huge disparity, income disparity, and also, show off disparity.
Display is a lot of. People don't have shame. They don't have shame anymore. They should have more shame.
What we need is
more
shame in this town, yeah.
Yes, I mean, because
Let's bring back shame.
you can't walk through a homeless community and wear some expensive clothes and these people are struggling to live. I mean, that should cause a person shame.
Well, it's a shame on us that we haven't fixed it. We have a bigger problem here, and partly because a lot of people come to Hawaii
I was
and be
stunned.
homeless. Just unbelievable how many homeless there, and how little we do to fix the problem. Now, granted, it's a complex problem, and the smart guys have tried to come up with stuff, even guys who are in the fixing business.
Right.
But they still haven't fixed it. For my money, and money the operative word, the government has to spend money on fixing it.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't be cheap about that.
Right.
And a lot of other things, and people say, we can't spend that much money. Well, sure you can. This is a systemic problem.
Of course
It's
they
a
can.
crisis.
If you could have spend it on trillions of dollars on wars that go nowhere, you could certainly spend money on housing people. I happen to think housing is a fundamental right. The Supreme Court doesn't, but I do. So
We're going to get you on there. I understand there's a vacancy.
Yeah, I would love, but no,
You're not going to get it from the Republicans. I'll tell you
I
now.
spoke to a young woman. Do you know her name? She was accepted as Sotomayor's, the first University of Hawaii graduate that was accepted as Sotomayor's clerk.
Yeah.
And I asked her on the show, and she said the Supreme Court's very, very picky about where I go and who I talk to these days. So I couldn't get her, but I said you can have a great time. She said she was really nervous, but I said it's going to be a great experience.
Oh
for
yeah,
you.
that's fabulous that we have a representative there.
Yeah, definitely. And everybody loves it. Everybody that I know who has done it loves it.
But this goes, this whole thing, I mean, really, a lot of these anecdotal things we're coming up with today really all point at the subject, which I want to cover with you more next time. But the subject is government working? Do we know how to handle the money? Because at the end of the day, it's about money. Follow the money and you'll see what's getting done, what's not getting done. When I see in the newspaper that the city council wants to give a $250,000 grant to a church, any church, I think the founding fathers must be spinning in their graves. sorry, but
No, that's yeah.
really unconstitutional.
Right.
And I don't care what the evolution of the law was during the Bush administration.
Well, how about, have Ted Cruz, every time he makes he announces vice president, he said, I consulted the Lord. I mean, there's this intermingling of religion and politics, and people think that they can just cross that line. He pulled back, right? Councilman Martin, right? He pulled back.
Yeah, but the fact that he did not know it was in violation of the founding principles of the country really bothers me. Because, gosh,
he should know. If he doesn't know, who would know, right?
Yeah, I mean, it goes to education. Maybe we have generations of people who haven't been educated on these things and don't know about the founding fathers, and they get in office and they do things like that. The other one is buying land from private landowners over the state. You want to take the land out of circulation, you buy it, and you spend our tax money, which we work so hard to earn. And you go out and buy land. You buy land in Haleiwa, you buy land on the Big Island. This is really...
And to what end? For what purpose do they buy the land?
And it's not condemnation either. It's not only not condemnation, it's voluntary. Not only is it voluntary, but the seller is lobbying you to buy his land.
Well, I'm sure that, they pay they get a good price. But what does the state want the land for?
Well, in the case of Haleiwa, they wanted to, keep it free of tourism, I guess.
Wetland, yeah, right. Yeah. Aren't there wetlands there, I think, or something?
It wasn't environmental. I think it was tourism.
Okay.
They didn't want a hotel or some kind of condominium going on there. And the Big Island, I really don't know. I don't recall. But point is, the state is buying land, and they're taking our hard-earned money, and they're not funding the employees' retirement system.
Right.
They're not dealing with climate change. They're not dealing with desalinization issues, water issues.
If they're buying land, I mean, they should deal with homelessness. That to me seems the exact right response if you're buying land. But of course, if you don't want tourists, you certainly don't want homeless people near your multi-million-dollar houses.
Put them somewhere else.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I know.
But you know who the biggest landowner in the state is?
No.
The state.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't know, there's some kind of notion about holding it in trust for a later time, for some nirvana thing that's supposed to happen later. Well, come on. We could use that land for the homeless.
I think so. I think
we don't have to
people
buy
need it.
land from someone else and spend, So I think it's the lobbying issue, the way government works, the priorities about spending money.
Well, money talks. I mean, when we were younger, there was not this kind of big money. Maybe the tobacco industry, right? That comes to mind in the 70s
Still
and
around.
80s. Yeah, but now everybody has these sophisticated lobbyists that influence legislators, and government officials. It's a money game, and another thing, no shame about taking money from. Hillary Clinton has no shame about taking money from Goldman Sachs. She feels perfectly entitled to do that.
And blows it off when Bernie points it out.
Right.
And remember the movie Sicko, Michael Moore, the movie, I love that movie. And he talked about how these guys were in Congress and they were voting on health issues. And as soon as they got out, as soon as their term ended and they didn't run again, they got these really fat jobs from the healthcare industry.
Well, I think even in the case of this church-state issue, I imagine there must have been a relationship between the church and the councilman, because how would you pick a church? I mean, I imagine that there was some kind of mutual support going on there. I don't know.
Well, New Hope is a very effective church. I mean, it's effective in getting people in collecting money from the congregation, and it's very effective in lobbying, in exercising influence in the legislature, and that's what you get. And really, I mean, if you just go to opening day in January, around January 15th, and you look at the whole state's there. Everybody's there. Everybody wants something from the legislature. And a lot of people get something from the legislature. I think it's really remarkable how many companies, how many industries. It's like if you're a foreign investor, foreign capital, and you're coming in to start a business, your lawyer's going to tell you, number one, go down to the legislature, make some friends.
Well, yeah, people are accessible here, I have to say, that you really can, it doesn't really work that way in New York because the people are less accessible. So there's many layers you have to go through before you actually get to, although we have our share of, congressmen that,
are not accessible.
Yeah, have to, whatever. So Yeah, the influence of money on politics has like despoiled the whole. I mean, it's not really a noble calling. It's really kind of a grubby kind of
business.
Yeah.
Business.
People should be proud to be statespeople. They should statesmen, stateswomen. You know, but they have to dirty their hands with these like
Have to survive.
Yeah, to survive.
Unless they're wealthy.
Right.
So there's more to cover here. We only just identified it as one issue, and we have to do this again. You know, he said, she said, whatever.
I'd love to.
We don't have to agree on everything.
No,
We don't.
No, but you persuade me. That's the problem.
You persuade me.
I started out not agreeing with you, and then by the end I said, he has a good point there.
You have an open mind. So do I.
I hope so. I try.
That's Maryann Sasaki. He said, she said, my buddy. We'll be back to
Yes.
do this again. We're going to cover the landscape in detail.
That would be great.
Drilling down here on Think Tech.
That would be great.